Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This time earlier than usual. My name is Karina from the Matura Express, and today I'm going to tell you something about some exam strategies. And yeah, well, our topic is describing graphs and statistics. Have fun. Okay. As you may know, or as I'm pretty sure you've heard before, you can also, or there is the possibility that you get some visuals to describe in your final exams. The most popular ones are statistics, really, or the kind of new form, the kind of like a botched version of statistics, the Infographs, because they give you a lot of information that is not text, and you can kind of read a lot from statistics if you can do it, if you do it properly. So that's why they're increasingly popular. First of all, I will give you some vocab that you may find useful in describing statistics, like the most frequent ones. I'll also point out some grammar aspects that you should bear in mind or that you should be careful of, or careful about. And then, yeah, I'll tell you how I usually go about describing statistics and try and give you a few tips on how to properly do it. Let's have a look at the words. I'll try and type them, which is not that easy here. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about it. You out there in front of your screens, tablets, whatever. I'll then type them up and we're gonna revise them again in the end, or we go about over them in the end again. Let's see, why is there such a strange frame in my picture? Well, no matter. There's always things that I don't want. It's either a green halo or strange lines in my picture. Anyway, the German ones are on the sheet of paper. I want you to think about the English ones. Yeah, I'll try to cover a lot of aspects that, I try to give you the most important vocab so as to be able to describe the most important aspects of a statistic. I'm pretty sure you're done with your thinking. Ansteigen, zunehmen, increase, or the classic, of course, rise would of course work as well. Be careful about the tenses in the statistics. Also make sure that you know your irregular verb forms. Increase is clear, but rise in all its other tenses, or in the past tense and in the past participle, would be in irregular form. Make sure that you usually have statistics that give you a certain time frame, like, I don't know, a line graph that covers the years 2010 until 2015, which would mean that everything is past tense. Talking about the year 2018 from the beginning of the year until now would make it a present perfect tense. So be careful about the tense aspects now that that's the first irregular verb form cropped up already right at the beginning. So ansteigen, zunehmen, increase, and rise, the same thing. Rise, rose, risen in that case. A word that you definitely do know is to grow, as the verb form of wachsen. Grow is quite a high frequency word. What people usually struggle with is the noun, das Wachstum, to describe the Wachstum of something, of the development of a graph. The growth. Also make sure that you hear the th sound at the end of the words. Otherwise, your examiners could think that you use the verb form instead of the noun, because that's what people tend to be able to come up with more quickly or whatever. Next one. One that is, why does it always capitalize? One that is quite frequently used in line graphs, so the ones that give you the X and Y lines, and then the horizontal and the vertical lines, and then have a line in between. They usually use something like this for the highest point of a line graph. you should mention the most important developments or the most striking developments of a line graph, for example, which means that you definitely would want to talk about when the line graph reached the peak. The opposite of the first two words, the official opposite of increase is of course decrease. And for, well, I should just leave out the capitalization, I guess. And for abnehmen, you could also take fall, fall, fell, fallen. Be careful about the irregulars once again. An important one, or one that you may not have heard of so frequently, if you have a line graph and it kind of stays the same in the end, there's no big fluctuations anymore, it's kind of like fading out a little bit to level off of some kind of development of line graph usually. Here for stark und plötzlich abfallen, like if you really have a line graph, the curve of which goes like this, they do have, or English does have, an own word for that, which makes a lot of sense, I think. To plummet derives from the fruit, like they fall straight from the trees. That's why plummet kind of makes sense, I think, for stark und plötzlich abfallen. So that's, as I said, that's when you have a line graph that kind of goes down like. If something doesn't really change an awful lot, but kind of stays the same for a longer period of time, it remains stable, so it does not, it does not change an awful lot, so there's not much movement going on in the graph or in the bars or whatever you have. An ohm or sehr groß, well, it's different versions for that, of course. A huge increase would probably be the most feasible one, or the most normal one. You'd of course all know the next couple, or at least the next word. They're all adjectives that can be described to use, or like that can be described, or that can be used to describe, that can be used to describe the movement of a graph. The important thing about them is the grammar behind them, really, because depending on what you use them for, they're either nouns or they're either adjectives or adverbs. Dramatic or dramatically. Adding the ly form, so there was a dramatic increase because it would then be an adjective, or the increase was dramatical because the verb in the sentence is a form of to be that it kind of refers to. But it increased dramatically because then the word of reference or the point of reference would be the verb, and then you'd have to be careful with whether or not you use an ly form. Those adjectives are all quite useful to like prove that you deal with your vocab very well and that you know how to use your words. So, of course, usually the sentence does make sense without an adjective or an adverb as well, but still you'd want to prove how good your English skills are and what you can do with language. So, I would use them if I were you. So, ein bedeutender Anstieg would be a significant increase then, or the graph, or there was, let me think of a good example, the development of tourism in Austria rose significantly from 1958 until 1964. I don't know. Beträchtlich, also one of those words, falls in the same category as the other ones. So if you say, well, there was maybe not such a big increase, but still it was kind of, you know, worth mentioning. There was a considerable increase, or it increased considerably. Beträchtlich was not as big as in huge, for example, but still. Gemäßigt, moderate, whoopsie. Moderate, there was a moderate increase, or it increased moderately in that sense. So there's no real ups and downs in the graph, but there's like a constant movement, or not all too much of a difference between the two bars of a bar chart, for example. Rasant, schnell, well, probably, or I think I put the word on the sheet so as to be able to increase your vocabulary a bit or give you new ideas on how to say quick, because quick or fast both are high frequency words that we are tempted to use quite frequently because they pop up in our heads immediately when we need them, because, as I said, high frequency. You shouldn't really repeat yourself all the time. You want to prove to your examiners that there is that you know a lot of words. So using quick and fast all the time might not be the best idea. So you could replace it for rapid, which is maybe higher register, or at least a little bit, but still, at the end of the day, it's oral exams, so why not? Schrittweise has, yes. Why do I always leave out the A's? Gradually or step by step. Both work, so if you have something that doesn't really develop all too fast, but in like steps, and going up or going down in like different steps, then you could use either or, step by step, or gradually. Both possible. Well, abstürzen, I guess we had that really. To fall, or the plummet that we already mentioned earlier. To decrease, of course, also works. To fall and to decrease kind of, to fall and to plummet, sorry, kind of like the implication that both words have is that the graph or the line goes down quite rapidly. Decrease doesn't really have to be like a really sharp decrease, but can also be a moderate one, a step-by-step decrease of something. Schwanken, well, if there is a word like fluktuieren in German, there is of course one in English that sounds quite similar. I can never write that word. So if something goes up and down, you will know those graphs where, like, maybe the easiest ones to describe, because there's a lot going on in those graphs where you have a lot of ups and downs, a lot of peaks, a lot of movement going on. So then the line fluctuates a lot, meaning goes up and down. Vergleichsweise should be a little further up, because grammar-wise and like usage-wise it fits to beträchtlich and gemäßigt and all those other words. Comparatively, or comparative as an adjective. So comparatively, vergleichsweise, the increase was comparatively low, or there was a comparatively big increase, whatever. And I think the last one on my sheets, to cut, a cut, or to shorten would also work as like something for Kürzung, or like to make something a little shorter. So let's have a look at the words again for you to remember. Ansteigen and zunehmen, increase, rise, be careful, rise, rose, risen, no other verb forms accepted. To grow, grow, grew, grown would be an irregular verb form as well at that. Reaching the peak, or there is also another one now that I am at it. I think it's one of those words that you more frequently read than actively use, but statistics that are already interpreted, or that have already been interpreted for you, they would sometimes also use the word climax as the word for höhepunkt. A word that can also be used for describing literature, for example, a story or a play, like something on stage, a Theaterstück, would also have a climax. So just the highest point where the most action is, basically. Opposite of increase, decrease. In increase and decrease, the nouns the same, so der Anstieg und der Abstieg, or would be increase and decrease as well. So no types of word problem here. To level off, the one at the end, well, yeah, this one, the one on my sheet, kind of levels off. There's not that much movement going on anymore at the end of the line. To plummet, as I said, a word that is quite easily, that you can memorize quite easily, really. Remain stable, for gleichbleiben, you know the word huge, of course. Dramatic or dramatically. Again, bear in mind the grammar structure. Revise the grammar chapter of adjective adverb if you feel the need. Significant in bedeutend, the increase or the decrease was significant. There was a considerable increase, whatever. It was moderate, so not much is going on. There was a moderate increase. Rapid as a synonym for quick and fast. So can of course also be used in its adverb form. So it rose rapidly, it increased rapidly, it decreased rapidly, whatever. Gradually, step by step, depending on what you wanna, or depending on which one you prefer, really. To fall, to plummet, to decrease, abstürzen. Had that. We have schwanken, fluktuieren, so if there's a lot going on in the line graph, line graphs usually have the most fluctuation because that's what they are for, to depict fluctuations and a lot of quick changes. Vergleichsweise, comparatively, and to cut or to shorten if you need it. So there's three main types of statistics that come up with like quite high frequency. So there's the bar charts, the so-called Balkendiagramme. Let's type that one. How does my B not capitalize Balken? Now it does. Diagramm. So I spelled correctly. Yeah. Usually the bar charts, I have a bar chart that I can show you actually, kind of goes with the topic because later on, by the way, I have mentioned that, later on there's some trial exams going on in here, so they will be about tourism as well. So this is a bar chart. As you see, you have a horizontal and a vertical line. The horizontal line gives you countries in this case, so they're the countries that actually get the tourists that are, or it's about the number of tourists in South Korea, Japan, the States, Russia and Vietnam. The bar chart also describes the development, or it kind of examines the differences between 2012, 2013 and 2014, wants to see if there's any developments going on. On the vertical line you have the numbers in thousands, which is also very important. Always have a look at what the vertical and the horizontal lines actually are. Like, are they percentage points? Are they numbers? If they are numbers, what's the entity? Like, is it thousands of people? Is it millions of people? Or is it thousands or millions or hundreds? Usually a good statistics does tell you what it is. So that's a bar chart. We'll come back to that one when I tell you what to be careful about in the description of bar charts. Basically holds true for all the types of charts that there are. That's why I decided to take a bar chart as an example. Then we have the line graphs. That would be a line graph here on my sheet. We all know them. Line graphs. Again, horizontal and the vertical line, or horizontal and the vertical axis, and then a graph or a line that describes the most significant fluctuations, the most significant changes that there were. Very frequently together with numbers or dates. So line graphs like to analyze the development of a certain thing, or show the peaks and the all-time lows of a certain aspect. Let's take tourism in Austria as an example. As I said, it fits the topic. So a line graph would, for example, analyze the development of the number of tourists in the Tyrol, for example. And maybe you have a significant low, like when it reached the bottom in a year when there was economical crisis or whatever. So line graphs tend to show you where a certain aspect of a certain topic has reached a peak or a low, actually. Oh, that's a little big. So what do we call, the question is, what do we call line graphs in German? Liniendiagramme, is that what they're called? Doesn't sound all too convincing in German, but well, Liniendiagramm, okay. Now I know why I like English more than German, really. So Liniendiagramme is what they are. As I said, line graphs are the ones that usually show a lot of fluctuations, so there's a lot of action going on in a line graph tendentially. Otherwise, nobody would make one, I guess. So, yeah, it's quite a nice one to describe. And the pie charts, Tortendiagramm. In both languages, both English and German, a very nice metaphor. Beat the pie or the torte. You know, pie charts, they give you like, it's kind of cake. That's why they're called pie charts. And you have different slices that represent an aspect of a topic. You find pie charts very frequently in, I don't know, statistics of the usage of Facebook, for example. Separated or split up in different groups. So you have the age group, I don't know, 13, 14 in one class, then 15, 16 in one class. They'd all get like a single or a separate slice of the cake, usually in different colors. Frequently used to, as I said, depict patterns of users, for example, where it is important to compare different age groups. So that's what pie charts are most frequently used for. Now we have this kind of mixed version, a botched version of text and statistics, which are so-called infographs. They usually do feature some kind of statistics. Doesn't necessarily have to be a bar chart, line graph, or a pie chart. It's just some kind of image giving you some data, some numbers, and but also some text to read, some information to deal with. I think we had infographs in one of my previous trial exams. It was one of the input texts. So infographs are, you may be able to use some of the words and some of the strategies that work for the analysis of statistics, because they kind of are a type of statistics, but not a pure type of statistics. They'd also give you text and things to read up on. Okay. Good. Let's have a look at this graph again. I'll try and give you like some ideas on what you could add to, or how I would go about the description of this graph or any other graph that there is. I'd probably, okay. Let's put the text on top of the page. So at first, definitely, of course, which is self-evident, I guess, identify type of chart. Be a good idea to know what type of charts that you are interpreting. I would start, or in your exams, I would start assuming, or I would start from the assumption that your examiners do not know the statistics you're talking about. Of course they do, but if you kind of think, well, yeah, I have to describe it in as much detail as possible, and I have to give them as much information as possible, because they maybe don't know what graph I'm talking about, that helps. So I would definitely identify the type of chart first, kind of like, yeah, I have a bar chart in front of me that depicts whatever it does depict. tell them what is on the horizontal and the vertical line. Vertical line. So what is the data you're dealing with? Is it dates? Is it numbers of people? Is it, what else can it be? Money? Sometimes it's also money. If the statistics talks about the expenses on, I don't know, health insurance in Austria, for example. So one of the two lines, either the horizontal one or the vertical one, would give you money or numbers. So identify what you're talking about first, and also, if applicable, the source that you took the information from, or that the chart was taken from by whoever put together the exam. Your teachers or your trainers have probably talked you through the process of finding relevant information for research, for presentations, whatever. Usually good sources are good, be it textual input or visual input, they usually do have a source. I would mention the source if it's, like, if you have a source, if you know where the statistics come from. Lows and climaxes. If it is a statistics that gives you quite a lot of information, like altogether you have 15 bars to describe, which is quite a lot, talking your audience or talking the examiner through all the 15 of them is first of all not the aim of the task. The aim of the task is for you to basically identify what is relevant and what is not, what is important information, what can be left out. That's the task. So do not talk them through all the 15 bars that there are, but look for lows and climaxes. So where does the development reach an all-time low, or where does it reach a striking low, something that kind of strikes you as the person who has to look at the statistics, or where the climax is, like where did the development go up, where is there a significant fluctuation, maybe why, if you can. So I would identify the lows and the climaxes. Try and find reasons if you can, if it is a topic where it applies, and if it is something that you know, like I would not make any assumptions about lows and climaxes if I don't know what I'm talking about. If you can, identify reasons for possible lows and possible climaxes. As I said, in the in the development of tourists in Austria, maybe the financial crisis did have an impact. So maybe there was fewer tourists going on holiday, or there was fewer people able to afford holidays somewhere abroad. So this could be a reason for a possible low. Or if you have a certain tourist area you're dealing with, and you happen to know that there's been like a big event going on, then this might explain the climax. This might explain, like, I don't know, Kitzbühel, for example. If you have overnight stays, die Übernachtungen in Kitzbühel, and January has a lot of overnight stays, and you happen to know that there's a big race going on, you may want to, give that as a reason, because you know something that could explain the development. If you don't. So don't make assumptions that you can't prove. But if there is something that you know, then add that. What else? So what I would talk about here is, well, I would probably mention that Japan has lost some tourists. We don't really know why, or at least I couldn't think of a reason why Japan would actually lose tourists. There was a good many more tourists in 2012 than there was in 2014. We might not be experts on Japanese tourism, but still, that is something that I would mention, that Vietnam has gained a lot in importance, maybe because it has advertised its place a little more they have done like some campaigns so as to make Vietnam more popular to tourists, whatever, become safer as well, it could be. The United States of America have lost not that many tourists, but still there is a loss, and it's always been a very popular tourist destination. So you may want to make some assumptions on why this has happened. Russia, one of the few countries where there's hardly any movement going on. I would point that out as well, that Russia has always been a very stable country in terms of numbers of tourists. No highs, no lows, no absolute like amazing numbers of tourists, but quite stable in its development. Yeah. So what else is important in the... Yeah, I think that's it. From a vocabulary point of view, please bear in mind that the word statistics always comes in the plural. So even if it is only, here we only have one bar chart, regardless of this fact, it's still statistics in the plural. I guess that's because statistics always considers of like various parts. There's usually more than one bar in this case. Even line graphs, even if there's only one single line, that still have to be a horizontal and a vertical axis. So there's more to the whole thing than only one aspect. I guess that justifies plural. Anything else? So yeah, identify the type of charts. Let us know what's on the horizontal and the vertical line. So basically answering the question, what do I see? Let your audience know what you see. Assume that they don't know, like they have the same piece of paper in front of them than you have. But still, you can then go into, you know, the more they know about it, and like the easier it is for them to follow your talk. And it also gives you speaking time, of course. Identify the source if you have it. In this case, we don't. But usually, statistics say something like in Austrian newspapers, they would, or statistics published in Austria would give you either the newspaper that they appeared in or the organization that did the statistics or put together the statistics. So yeah, let us know the source. Identify the lows and the climaxes and give possible reasons on why there could be such a strong development or such a strong change. Also, as I said, bear in mind the plural forms of statistics, and I guess adjective, I can never, adjective, adverb, and adjective, adverb, and at the end of the day also the tenses are probably the most important grammar chapters for you. In the description of statistics, did I misspell the word adjective actually? I did, didn't I? Yeah. Yep. Grand. It's like, you know, that moment when you talk about grammar and can't spell it right. Adjective. So yeah, revise your adjective, adverb, and revise the tenses as well. Usually, like as a rule of thumb, all the developments that happened before the actual year, before the current year, would probably be past tenses, whereas everything that has happened in 2018 so far would be present perfect. And sometimes, but that depends on the statistics, sometimes the statistics kind of give you an outlook on what the development might be like in the future. We get that sometimes in topics like environment, for example, predictions on global warming, for example. There would definitely be statistics, or there are definitely statistics out there that give you 2025. So yeah, you could also include that, speculating, of course, using future tenses. Yeah, I think that's it, really. I hope that, well, yeah, some people like statistics a lot because it gives them something to hold on to. There's people who like numbers, I guess, at the end of the day. So yeah, if you get a statistics in your oral exams, I wish you good luck. I hope that I was able to contribute some aspects that you didn't know. or that I was at least able to give you some new vocab that you can include. Thank you very much and good night.